So I've been on Facebook for about 30 days because I was suspended for 30 days. I think before that I was probably on Facebook for 3 weeks because before that I was suspended for another 30 days, Mark Zuckerberg is just not feeling my swag. Understandably so. I generally have to explain to people how Facebook works because Facebook is not my home. I've explained to a couple of people how the internet works, and I'm not going to do that here. But what I'm going to do is explain that www.facebook.com is an address. It's a web address, but it's an address. Just like the post office, just like a complex, just like a shopping mall. It's an address, and the address, by and large, belongs to Mark Zuckerberg. It's his home. It's his location. And he's made his home so cool, just like a shopping mall, that all of us want to visit there every day, all day. And not only do we visit there like any other normal website, but he's allowed us to create our own rooms at this address. So where you are now is Penuel's little cubicle inside Mark Zuckerberg's address, which is www.facebook.com. Now, because it's Mark Zuckerberg's address, he gets to set the rules of his home. He's a white Jewish American guy who's got certain views and who tries to appeal to certain stakeholders. By stakeholders, I'm talking about his investors, I'm talking about his friends, I'm talking about his family, I'm talking about the people that dominate how he thinks and what he believes in. And they've set these rules and they've created these algorithms that pick out certain things that they don't appreciate. Whether they believe it's racist or it's violent or it's got gender discrimination of sorts, he picks that stuff out. A lot of the times, unfortunately, when I've been suspended, it's been for bullshit, because when I look at what I posted, for example, it makes no sense why I was suspended. And obviously, along with a whole lot of other people, you start having these conspiracies that, look, the Facebook guys and the Facebook algorithms are tracking all of the things you post, and they're not happy with the fact that you are an alternative thinker and you're trying to get people to see things in a different way, because Facebook as a tool and as a place where people visit every day, almost like school, they have, like I said, the rules. And because of those rules, people then get to have some type of way of thinking, even a way of typing. The things that you type on Facebook, if you know that you'll get suspended for it, you end up typing differently. And because you type differently on Facebook, you might end up typing differently in other spaces in your life. Because Facebook says racism is bad, because Facebook says you can't speak ill about women, because Facebook says you can't post pictures about violence and whatever, you end up getting so used to that you transfer it into your normal life. And in that way, Facebook starts owning your mind, which is actually why I made this video. I made this video because I want to talk about why I believe I am God. Very controversial. I've found people that have taken offense to the fact that I say and I write, Penuel is God. I've made t-shirts, or I've made these material things that I've stuck on t-shirts written Penuel is God. I post it on all my social media platforms and I speak about it regularly, So I want to explain why I believe I am God. In 2017, I don't know what sparked this, to be honest, but I'd seen this meme a couple of times, which was quoting Adolf Hitler, which was saying, make a big lie, keep it simple, but say it over and over again until they believe it. I don't know if Hitler actually said this, but a lot of people, if you study historically, you find that a lot of the things we believe to be true have become truth, mostly because so many different sources have said the exact same thing. You go to Google, it's there. You go to Wikipedia, it's there. You go to your parents, they say the same thing. You switch on the news, you go to your library. Everyone has said this one thing over and over to a point where you actually believe that this must be a fact. And what you call a fact started from one source, from one person, so to speak. So I've always wanted to be a leader. I've always wanted to help people live better lives, I believe. And in looking for different models of how to help people do that, I considered politics. I don't like politics because I believe it's the mud there. And anyone who jumps into politics by default ends up getting into the mud and ends up fighting with the pigs that are there. Almost no matter how good you are, even if you're a very ethical guy with integrity and you have good intentions and you want to do good to the people, the way politicians and their systems work, you're constantly trying to drag people down. You're constantly throwing people under the bus. You're constantly having to lie to the masses. You're constantly having to make promises you know you can't keep while receiving this really nice salary, while whining and dining some of the people that have been demonized by society as oppressors and exploiters of the normal man. So I realized politics is not for me. On top of that, I don't want to campaign. I don't want to go out there and beg people, please vote for me, please like me. You know, I will make sure that you date a hot chick. I will make sure that your husband is fucking rich. I don't want to do that. I like being as honest as I can, especially to myself. Politics was one of them. Business was another one. If you look at someone like Patrice has now used money to try and ascend in various leadership structures. He did the same with the Global Citizens. By buying Sundowns and bringing Barcelona here, a lot of people somehow worshipped him. He's hosted some of the biggest churches in the country in stadiums. And now he's gone and he's effectively bought being president of CAF for soccer. Other people will argue otherwise because it's not written in the news, but all of the guys that he was going up against decided to pull out, which tells me only one thing, that Patrice paid them, you know, in one way or another. I'd like to think he didn't threaten them, because that's always the other option. When you threaten people's lives or their families, they will obviously step down. I believe he bought them out. Money can do that too. Money can do a lot for you, you know. So some people lead because they are in business and because they make money. And if you look at a lot of the systems that we have in the world, the law, business policies, the way the education system is set up, the way socialization and churches are set up, a lot of it comes from business leaders that have funded some of these systems and structures to be in place. So if I'm very rich and I run mines, I'm going to want the schooling system to make sure that kids are taught to become the best mining employees possible so that I can get the best mining employees. If I need people to not fight against me, I don't want them to steal, I don't want them to hurt each other, I can then fund the churching system so that there are as many churches as possible that are constantly preaching this message of thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. Whenever you think of doing bad things, there's some imaginary, invisible God out there in the sky that's constantly watching you. You fund that as a rich person. I don't have the money. I don't know if I'll ever get to the money. And I'm not sure if I necessarily want to build systems from the dark in the back like that. You know, the one thing I settled on in 2017 was choosing to become a king. When you become a king, you're not voted in. So there's a couple of ways to become a king. And look, I've sat with Uzwelithini's chief advisor and asked him, how do I become a king in a world where we no longer fight? You know, if I killed Uzwelithini, if I put together an army and went and fought against him and defeated him, would I then become the king of the Zulus? Or is there another way? Would the government need to be the one that says, no, we actually recognize Penuel as the king of the Zulus, so Uzwelithini is no longer recognized? What is the way? Gave me a lot of answers, but I didn't essentially find what I was looking for. The one thing that I took out from that conversation for myself was Zwelithini is king because people say so. What does that mean? We believe he is royal blood. We believe he is a descendant of Ushaka. Not because we know it as a fact, but because we've been told so. And again, like I said earlier, because you'll find it on Google, you'll find it on Wikipedia. If you ask in the news, if you ask anyone in government, if you ask your parents, if you ask in church, everyone will tell you the king of the Zulus is Ukudul Zwelithini. And I realized if I can get people to say that I am king of the Zulus, for example, 2 people, 5 people, 10, 20, 30 people, to those people, I will be king of the Zulus. And if I can convince enough people over time that I'm king of the Zulus, eventually I will be the king of the Zulus. I will have killed no one. I would have challenged no one in a debate, on a campaign, even on TV. But like I said with Hitler, make the lie big, make it simple, and say it for long enough and people will eventually believe it. So what I decided on, because I didn't want to be king of the Zulus, I decided to be king of the Nguni people. Nguni people are the Zulu people, Maxhosa, Amandebele, Maswati. So I was like, you know what? Those guys don't have a king. I'll be king of the Nguni people because it's the one combination of languages I understand and I can speak. I can go to Eswatini and be understood. I can go to Kwandebele. I can go to Emaxhoseni in the Eastern Cape. And obviously I can go to KwaZulu, and I can speak and I can understand them. When I did the research, I realized that the Nguni people are descendants or are a subset of the Bantu people, the people of Ntu. So the Nguni people are descendants of the people of Ntu. And there, at the time, was 27 million, recorded 27 million Nguni people across the world. I think we're 28 million now. So I started saying this thing. I'm king of the Nguni people. King of the 27 million Nguni people of Southern Africa. King of the Nguni people. It was a joke. People laughed. It became like a rap name. Oh, King of the Ngoonies. Yo, what's up, what's up? And even when I was added in a WhatsApp group with some of the leaders of this country, I kept saying the same thing. I'm the king of the Nguni people. And in that group, mind you, there's like the head of traditional houses, and I think there's 2 other kings or chiefs in that group. And they thought this was very amusing. Who are you? Who recognizes you? What's your constituency? Where's your land? And that was good research and questions and good tools for me to begin thinking about what it actually means to be a king. Would I need land? Would I need somewhere to put up a sign with my face? Welcome to the king, welcome to Penuel, the Penuel kingdom. And then people will know, just like Uzwelithini's got the palace in northern KZN, and other kings and chiefs. When you visit them, you're always shocked because we watch fairy tales, man, and we watch fucking Disney. So when you hear king, you're expecting some castle somewhere. And unfortunately, that's not the case. You're going to find some building, some house, and they'll tell you that's where the king lives. And you're like, so that's the royal palace. Well, that's the royal palace, that building there. I was reminded of this when I went to go and see or the house of Ushembe, one of the Shembe kids in Western area. And you're just looking at, oh, so this Shembe guy that's idolized lives here. It's just a house, But I realized a lot of people will recognize you as king if you own land. The land is branded, which means your name is there somewhere. There are a people who call themselves the people of Penuel, or I am Nguni, therefore I bow down to Penuel as the king of the Ngunis. And then I realized very powerfully, if you can convince 1 to 3 very influential people at the top, who have obviously hustled hard to get to that point, if you can convince them to go on a very public platform and announce you as that, a lot of people, by and large, will believe it. If Cyril Ramaphosa decides to give a speech and he says something like, I had a meeting with the king of the Nguni people, Penuel Wagamlocho, a lot of people will be like, motherfucker, this guy's actually king of the Ngunis. I heard Cyril say it. After Cyril says it, then maybe you hear Joe Biden say, I had meetings with the South African president, Cyril Ramaphosa, and he introduced me to the king of the Nguni people in Southern Africa, and announced me. And I can then go out and tell people, Google me, here's an article, etc. And I really am the king of the Ngunis. It's great. I've been doing it, like I said, since 2017. A lot of the people, even to this day, say it now. Some say it as a joke. Some half believe it. Some know it's not true, but they want me to be the king of the Ngunis because they like my leadership. They like my views. They like what I have to say. And they believe that if I keep pushing this thing, then eventually I will be believed and something will come of that. So that was my whole, it was a social experiment of sorts to do that. And I quite enjoyed it. And I think people have enjoyed it. To this day, I'm still called King Penuel. I'm trying to get rid of my surname to be King Penuel of the Nguni people, so that people can say, look, that's our king, and let's see how it goes. As time has gone on, I wanted more. Cool thing about being a king is I don't have to be voted in. I don't have to fucking campaign for shit. But if I can find a way to collect monies, because Uzwelithini today relies on tax money. He doesn't have a money-making mechanism as the king of the Zulus. There isn't a Zulu tax where Zulu people know that every month they pay 100 Rand or 5% or whatever, which goes to the Zulu kingdom. And then the Zulu king then builds schools, builds roads, builds houses, etc. Zwelithini doesn't do any of that shit. That shit is done by government. He just gets his 70 million every year just for being a king. And he's got very minimal responsibilities as far as running a kingdom is concerned. compared to someone like, maybe, let's say, maybe Umswati, you know, who, yes, has a prime minister, but he's still seen as the head of that country. So time went on from there, and I was like, look, I think I want more. And in wanting more, in studying the powers that affect human beings, can listen to a king. A lot of Zulu people don't listen to Zwelithini. Myself, Zwelithini has done fuck all for my life, essentially. So I don't find any pride in seeing him. I don't bow down to him. I don't recognize him. And I know a lot of people don't. You can go to a lot of Zulu people and ask them, do you know who this man is? They'll tell you, I don't know who that is. Eswatini, Mswati and Indlovukati have got their pictures everywhere, in shops, in houses, like Uli Khanyani of the ZCC churches down in South Africa, and I think Umodisa as well. So people in Eswatini have been conditioned, indoctrinated that this is our king. To what I was speaking about earlier, that you need to brand and you need to constantly keep telling this truth. And people must keep seeing this face, that this is the guy, this is the guy, this is the guy, this is the guy, this is the guy. Eventually, that is the guy. You know, so I've lost my train of thought. Zwelithini. I don't recognize Zwelithini. In looking at the people and the things that influence minds and own minds, I realize in South Africa, president is relatively powerful. But if you look at how Zuma's been attacked, if you look at how Mbeki's been attacked, if you look at how people have criticized Nelson Mandela as a sellout, you realize that, look, presidents have got limitations. You know, then you've got religious figures. Now, I'm talking live ones. Shembe, Likhanyane, someone like Bushiri, Pastor Chris, T.D. Jakes, Miles Monroe, Joel Austin. Geez, I can keep going. You know, these guys are very influential in the churches that they run. They are not God, they are not Jesus, but they are very close because they are very influential ambassadors of the various churches that they represent. And people will listen. If T.D. Jakes tells you, look, let's lose weight. If Pastor Chris tells his followers, guys, I think we need to stop eating meat, let's go vegan. If Bushiri tells people we need to run every morning, people will start saying, you know what, my pastor's saying this thing and I believe it's the right thing. You know, and I realize that they are more powerful than presidents because Cyril, Zuma, Mbeki, all these guys bow down to them. Every time these guys are coming into power, every time these guys are campaigning, they have to go and they have to pay homage to these guys. They also pay homage to the Zulu king as well, by the way. So these guys are pretty powerful as religious leaders. Above them, you then find, obviously, the American president that a lot of people bow down to, except Joe Biden is a fucking tit. But a lot of the world bows down to the American president. Luckily, guys like Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un of North Korea don't give two shits about the American president. But then I realized a lot of the Commonwealth nations, South Africa included, still pay homage to the Queen Elizabeth. Ramaphosa's done it, Zuma's done it, Mbeki's done it, Mandela's done it, Mswati's done it, Zwelithini's done it. You know, these people go and they literally go to Queen Elizabeth and pay homage. I don't remember Queen Elizabeth ever coming to South Africa to pay homage to us. So that tells me that she is a bigger boss than these guys. If you look at the South African system, for example, we were a British colony. That's why we still speak English. If you look at our schooling system, it's still very much a white British schooling system. We took on the British law, which is Roman Dutch law. So by and large, we're still very much an English country, and British colony. That's why we pay homage to the royal family at Buckingham Palace. Because we're still British. So Queen Elizabeth becomes a big deal. Beyond Queen Elizabeth starts lying some of these bigger bosses. And the bigger bosses, unfortunately, are dead. That's where now religion comes into play. Jesus, Allah, Buddha, the Hindu gods, Krishna and those guys are heavily influential. What does that mean? It means if Queen Elizabeth tells you something, if President Ramaphosa tells you something, if Joe Biden tells you something, if Zwelithini tells you something, but you go and you consult your Quran or your Torah or your Bible and you realize Jesus didn't agree to this. Now you're dealing with a higher power. You're dealing with someone who's got more influence over your mind, which is that ambassador who normally feeds into a God figure. The God figure is always abstract and it's big, but at least there's those guys. Sorry, I said Allah, I meant Muhammad. Muhammad and Buddha and Jesus are the guys, the messengers that were lived on earth Allah is actually God, so I apologize for that. But in terms of Hindu, they have a lot of gods. It's tricky with them, but I'll include them as well because they're one of the biggest religions in the world. So I did that research, and look, I've done research in religion since 2004. You know, when I was questioning my Christianity, and 2006, I eventually stopped being Christian, became an atheist, an angry atheist. About 3 or 4 years later, I became agnostic. After becoming agnostic, then I realized, you know what, actually let people live. Let people do what makes them happy. If they are good people, if they're good to the world, by all means, leave them alone. So I researched religion, and I was like, look, maybe I should be Jesus. Maybe I should be Moses. You know, I've spent some time with Bishop Joshua Maponga, who was from the Church of the Seventh-day Adventist, I believe. And he's currently now trying to get out of the church. He's now seeing Christianity as bad, etc. You know, and he's trying to find a new way of living outside of church and religion. You know, and having some of these conversations with him, I looked at the Jesus figure as a great ambassador. You look at a figure like Moses. You look at a figure like Noah. These were leaders of men, a wise man like King Solomon. You know, obviously I know more about Christianity than the other beliefs. And luckily Christianity is the biggest church in the world. I think it's got 2 billion followers, or people that say they are Christian. Out of a world of 7.8 billion people. There's over, I think, about 1.5 billion Muslims. I think after Muslims may come Hindus and then Buddhists, I'm not sure. Way down the ladder, you find like Jews at like 14 million. Very small number, incredibly influential, you know. So I looked at those guys, and then I started asking some of the questions that a lot of people maybe don't ask. So we're saying the Bible is the power force beyond the president, beyond the law, beyond the king, beyond Queen Elizabeth, the Bible. But my question is, where does the Bible come from? That's where you realize that this Bible was written by human beings, and we've come to accept it as the word of God, but it was written by human beings. So I started thinking, that means if I wrote a book, called it a Bible or some kind of holy scripture, and I spoke of some God. At the time, it wasn't about myself. I could create someone, Thanos, as someone that I like. The book of Thanos, and create these figures like Marvel Comics, and have a Captain America who's like a Jesus, and have an Iron Man who's like a King Solomon, and have like a Black Widow who's like a whatever, and have a Hulk who's like a Goliath, whatever. The same way you've got Greek mythology, Roman mythology that has all these gods, Thor, Mars, Venus, Minerva, all these gods that they created. When you read it, it reads like a Marvel comic. And look, arguably Marvel comics, just like The Matrix, have taken a lot of the inspiration from the Bible and from biblical sort of stories, along with the mythologies, like I mentioned, the Greek and the Roman, for example. But someone created this stuff, and over time, people have taken it as fact. And we live according to those principles, and we believe fundamentally that Jesus Christ lived, Moses lived, Noah lived. These people lived on the planet, and they are not fictional characters like Iron Man. We believe Iron Man's not real, but we believe Jesus Christ was real and he walked on water, because there's a book that says that, and we always go back and we consult the book. A book that it's come out has been altered over the years, over decades, over centuries. There's constantly been tweaks. There's different versions, the King James version, whatever the case. So I was like, if I write a book and I send it out into the world, there may be some people that may believe in it. I don't need everyone to believe in it, but I just need some people, because then I will begin influencing their minds and telling them how to live. Who will be my God? I am king. I could be Jesus. Could I be God? Could I actually be the source of life, the source of the universe, and the source of how we all live? And in doing that, I started asking, what is a God actually? And to me, God is the idea of the supreme power over your mind. Because what is a God in your mind is the thing that allows you to exist. Because of God, you were born. Because of God, there's rain. It is the source of your thoughts. To a point where if anyone comes with alternative thoughts, you first send it back to headquarters, which is God, and ask, is this the right way to live? And then you take it from there. So to me, God is just a concept of someone who owns your mind. And in the Christian format, it's the Bible, which was written by human beings. So the Bible, which speaks about God, is the book that actually created God. And the people that wrote the Bible are actually God, because they devised your way of thinking and your way of living. So I said, I can be God and I can tell people how to live. And once I, like in the movie Lucy, if you've seen the movie Lucy, if I can begin owning people's minds, 2%, 5%, 20%, 30%, and begin affecting how you live, the fact that you wake up at a certain time, the fact that you walk or you run, the fact that your diet is such a way, the fact that you think certain things about the ANC, about Joe Biden, the fact that I tell you certain things about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook and North Korea, the fact that I can influence your mind and you can go out there into the world and debate other people and live a certain way and eat certain things and go out and make lots of children because Penuel said so. I begin becoming God in your life because I'm the source of your existence. And I thought, I think that sounds like something that I want. I want to be God. Penuel is God. And I began drafting my Bible called Penuelism Principles. I think we've got like 20 chapters now. It's available in PDF format for people that have read it or people that would like it. And I'm trying to make the world a better place. And I realize ultimately, fundamentally, it's all about owning the minds. And the presidents and the kings and the religious leaders and all these guys are just trying to influence your minds using various mediums, which ultimately feed back into religion, which feed back into a God. And I want to be that. I want to be the God that eventually has ambassadors like Jesus. One day there'll be Temba, who's like, I am Temba, the son of Penuel, or I am Penuel's descendant. Penuel sent me to preach to you guys. So there'll be Jesus figures. And then beyond the Jesus figures, there'll be pastors who preach the gospel of Penuel. Penuel says we must live like this. We must do this. We must take our kids out of school and make them apprentice. We must grow our own food. We must love our families. We must not be broken. We must not listen to bullshit. We must, etc. And have these pastors that teach the same thing. And then somewhere along the line, them along with business people begin building the structures, maybe. The churches and maybe the schools, the media, the music, the movies, the documentaries, which then all feed into this core book that I've written. It's just lacking stories at the moment, but I'll get to the stories because stories are pretty cool. Ultimately get to this book, which then speaks about how to live life according to Penuel. People get upset. Why do you think you're God? Who the fuck do you think you are? God is listening. You're going to go to hell for whatever the fuck. And I don't mind. What I explain to some people when they say, look, there's only one God. I'm like, Christians believe so. But Christians don't believe in Allah. Does that mean Allah doesn't exist? Muslims will tell you Allah is God. And they might think the Christian God doesn't exist. Does that mean the Christian God doesn't exist? Then you go to the Buddhists, and you go to the Jews, and you go to whoever. So even in this world we live in, there is no one God. Even though people would like to tell you, no, all of these gods are actually one God. It's just different names. No, that's bullshit. Because they have different prescriptions on how to live life. So I don't need Muslims to believe in me because they don't believe in all the other religions. I don't need Christians to believe in me because they don't believe in all the other religions as well. I just need people who want to believe in me to believe in me. Even if it's 2 people, if it's 5 people, if it's 1,000 people, that's fine. I want to take them and make their lives better. And after making their lives better, they will then give testimony. Talk about the Holy Spirit, about how Penuel has fundamentally changed their lives, has unlocked their minds, and is allowing them to win in a world where they were oppressed before. There is one power now that is currently competing with the concept of God. And I'm also trying to fight this force in my life. It is difficult. And the people that control it, in essence, are almost bigger than God. And that's money. Once I can defeat money, once I can get people to defeat money, because I now understand how money works, and I understand how to get out of the money system. But money as a force is still incredibly, insanely powerful. People will forsake their gods, their pastors, their families. They will sell their children. They will give up their virginity. They will have sex with other people. They will breed with other people. They will travel to foreign lands. They will cut themselves up. They will be clowns on TV. They will forsake all their principles for money. Money is currently, potentially, as powerful, if not more powerful than God. And the people that control the money system, all the way to the central bank in London, arguably in the background, the Rothschilds or whoever's pulling the strings now, these guys control money today. And they become very, very powerful. So I'm kindly competing with that because I can either be God, which I'm doing now, or I can try and be the wealthiest man on the planet and then control money systems and then try and, but I'm not too interested in that for now. We've seen the power of Elon Musk on Twitter, that the guy can tweet and then stocks can fucking change in split seconds. That's power, that's God, that's money. But fundamentally, that doesn't necessarily mean Elon can tell a man to divorce his wife, or Elon can tell someone to eat food that is not halal or kosher, or that Elon will tell someone to stop praying, or that Elon can tell someone that there is no heaven. His power source hasn't gotten to that point. But I want to be God. I am God, and I want to own minds. So this video is basically about that. Why I believe I'm God, what it means to be God, and moving forward, hopefully I'll be working with some of you to carry on bringing into real life the concept of Penuel being God. Love you guys very much. I haven't done a live video for a while because Uzaks is a bit of a boost and Jen doesn't like me, but I don't like him either. But I'm in his home, so gotta respect his rules, you know. I'm going to download this video and then I'm going to upload it on YouTube as well. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, King Penuel. I'm going to post more of my stuff there, especially when I get blocked on Facebook. At least I can post some of my content on that side. Love you guys very much. Cheers.